What is up, everybody? Welcome to a Sunday evening edition of Crunch Time here on RotoGrinders, getting you ready for another NBA slate. We've got an earlier lock, as usual, on Sunday. For those of you that are in the States with U.S. Daylight Savings Time, the clock's moved ahead today, so it feels really early. The time is all really strange. I had to have myself a nap this afternoon. But we're getting through it. We're powering through this Sunday. We've got a lot of sports action on the calendar tonight, so we will see if we can make this NBA slate count. I am Justin Van Zuden, STL Cardinals 84. I've got TJ Zwarich alongside. I know TJ, is maybe a little fresher woken up from the nap than I am, but we drug him in here. We've got TJ along. So TJ, how's it going today?
Doing pretty well. We don't have daylight savings where I live here in Saskatchewan, Canada, but everywhere I do work for does. And so everything in RotoGrinders is Eastern time, and everything for Agents of Fandom is typically done in Pacific. And so all of my schedule drastically changes, but the time that I'm in doesn't change. And so I ended up having a little nap this afternoon as well. And it was the type of nap that, I just would have said goodbye to my entry fees and let it happen if I didn't have a show, because it wasn't intended to really happen. And then it got real deep and I didn't want to come out of it.
Yeah, I know that, those sometimes you wake up a little more tired than you did before you took the nap. But we'll see if we can't recharge throughout the show here and give some good advice for this NBA slate. Only 4 games tonight, so shouldn't take us a super long time to get through it. I do know that right before I came down, your Canadian squad is playing in the World Baseball Classic right now, and I think they had 10 or 11 runs in the first 3 innings. So they're playing well. U.S. got their Classic off to a good start with a win last night. They play Mexico this evening, so we'll see if our 2 teams can keep it rolling in the World Baseball Classic. But and that means it's closer to MLB season, right? I mean, I know we're both big baseball guys as well. So not too far away. It'll only be a couple weeks, and then we'll have 4 sports going on at once, it seems like.
Looking at the March schedule, just seeing Cheese's name at the bottom for some shows got me pretty excited.
Yeah, so we got MLB, I believe, starts around the 30th of March, so a couple more weeks for that. But we've still got NBA basically as your primary sport. If you're not playing hockey or golf, NBA is the main game in town. Had a larger slate last night, so that leaves us with just 4 games this evening. Not a ton of news. Anthony Davis is probable. Damian Lillard is probable. SGA and Brandon Ingram already got ruled out. Jalen Brunson ruled out as well. The only news that looks like we're kind of still waiting on is perhaps with the couple of the Spurs, with Jeremy Sohan and Keldon Johnson both being listed as questionable. I don't believe that news has broken yet, but that seems to be kind of the only major stuff that, at least as far as the things that we know we are waiting on, those seem to be the big ones. So what does the news have an impact on for you tonight?
Mainly the Spurs, because this is the highest total of the night. It's a 3-point spread. And so we already have Trey Jones out. If you happen to throw Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan to the mix, well, Vassell all of a sudden will pop even more aggressively than he already does. Devontae Graham will all of a sudden start looking good. Keita Bates-Diop. Maybe even some Langford, McDermott, Mamushkavelli. And so as it stands, it's mostly just the main Spurs that I have interest in: Vassell, Sohan, Keldon, a little Zach Collins. But if they get ruled out, then it's some chaos that I have a lot of interest in getting to. But as it stands right now, OKC, the Pelicans, and the Knicks are kind of like my 3 big priorities.
Yeah, those are the teams that I'm looking at as well, particularly the Knicks. You look at the Knicks are a team that they've lost 3 in a row. Brunson's out again. They basically only play 7 guys and short rotation. Matchup against the Lakers tonight. I mean, the Knicks are a team that I am really interested in. At least we kind of know, their news as far as Brunson being out. We're familiar with that already. They don't have anybody else kind of on the injury report, and that short rotation is just really appealing on a short slate like we have tonight. So I like the Knicks. I think OKC and San Antonio will be heavily targeted as well. Those are the teams that people will be looking at the most. If we start by checking out our sponsor site, Fanduel, Of course, we appreciate their support, and they help keep this show free all year long. So if you are enjoying the show and want this content to be free going forward, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, show your appreciation here. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, and of course, if you're in a legal sports betting state, you can sign up for the Fanduel Sportsbook, take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers bet $20 on any market, get $200 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. This offer is not available in Massachusetts because you guys get a special new bonus of bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. So if you're in Massachusetts, sports betting, of course, just launched there, and lots of sign-up bonuses and promotions available. And that one on FanDuel, bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets. So make sure you take advantage of that if you are in Massachusetts. All right,
we get that because we're better than everybody else.
It's fair. You know, one of the first states to have some DFS regulations, and Massachusetts just seems to be ahead of the game. So kudos to those. Now, I don't know if the Massachusetts bonuses are quite as enticing as what New York got when New York went live. So I don't know. I have to do all the comparisons, but I feel like
what is the better city, New York or Boston?
I've never been to Boston, so it's on the list, obviously, but I've never been there yet. So I can't.
Me neither. So it must be New York.
See, everybody's biased then here in some way because Rob is obviously biased, and we don't have the experience of both. I just have the experience of the Red Sox defeating the Cardinals in the World Series in 2004, and that was nauseating for all the Boston, hadn't won in X amount of years talk. So boo Boston for that, but that's bias. So
Justin, it looks like you're gonna have to do the show by yourself for the rest of it. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened to TJ.
He's gone. We scared him away. What happened, TJ?
Boston cut out my internet.
The government's watching. They're always watching. Even in Canada, they're watching. All right, let's start digging into this slate here. Again, even though it's only 4 games, we talked about the major items of news. We can kind of both go through the cash and GPP discussion and just throw separate thoughts in. But let's start with kind of the guard spots here on FanDuel. It looks like most of the ownership is going to be going towards Josh Giddey, CJ McCollum. Isaiah Joe is priced down a bit on FanDuel, so he's going to get some love there with the price difference compared to DraftKings. Vassell at shooting guard for San Antonio is popping pretty good. Quickly is an interesting discussion because with Brunson being out, Quickly and Grimes have been getting a ton of minutes, but FanDuel has priced them up. So those are kind of the options that are gaining the most steam: Giddey, Joe, McCollum, Quickly, Vassell. What are you looking at as far as the guards you're targeting on FanDuel tonight?
So it's so tough because I think you're playing obviously 4 of the 5 in cash games between Giddey, McCollum, Joe, Vassell, and Quickly. I feel like the one I want to leave out is either Vassell or Joe. Like Vassell or Joe, I think Quickly, Giddey, and McCollum are the 3 that I feel the most confident in. Now, obviously, those are also the 3 most expensive, so that does quite limit the rest of your lineup. But I think Giddey, McCollum, and Quickly are my 3 priorities, and then I think that last piece at guard for me is one I want it to either be Vassell or Joe, kind of dependent on where I get to the rest of my lineup. All these guys with like shooting guard, small forward eligibility, like a Lugens Dort or Jalen Williams, somebody like that, play them at the small forward position, especially in cash games, just because these guards are very, very strong plays today. Josh Hart, same type of thing. Unmentioned,
and the forward positions are horrible. We'll get to that, but the forward positions
RJ Barrett, another one of those guys. Yeah, exactly. The forward positions aren't near as strong today. Somebody like a Devontae Graham, I think, is very interesting for tournaments. Lindy Waters, interesting for tournaments. And then the last guy I think I'd want to mention is like somebody like Dyson Daniels. If you're running a lot of lineups, you're not going to have CJ McCollum in all of them. So the ones you don't, get a little Dyson Daniels in there, because if McCollum fails, maybe this turns into a blowout one of the ways, or maybe something happened, foul trouble, injury, whatever. And last game with Ingram out, Dyson Daniels played up to 24 minutes. He's a pretty safe not that high ceiling, not that but a pretty high floor play, I think. The thing with him is just like I think he could have a really high ceiling if something in this game changes it to him getting a few extended minutes.
Yeah, I don't mind getting a little creative on the the punt end tonight. There's really not a lot of options down there, so especially on FanDuel where the pricing has gotten a lot tighter this year. Everybody's going to be playing Isaiah Joe, which is fine. Joe grades out very well. You're probably going to put him in your cash game lineups, but if you want to get a little bit different, basically anybody else that's cheap, like a Daniels, a Cam Reddish, a DeAnthony Melton, those kind of guys, you can see occasional upside performances from them. Don't mind throwing them in, even somebody like Lindy Waters, if you think he might get a little bit more run, but and
Waters is who I ended up writing up in the expert survey today for my favorite contrarian play, just because it's OKC and San Antonio. Neither of these teams really want to win. This guy's on a short little contract, I think, till the end of the year. He's a G League player as well. He's trying to make a name for himself in the NBA. So I like him as a potential value play today.
And, if that Spurs news breaks and we end up, let's say Keldon Johnson and Sohan end up not playing, because that's breaking somewhat late, not as much ownership might flow to Devontae Graham as otherwise would have if we would have gotten this news, say, at noon. So that's a play that I don't mind, getting overweight on Devontae Graham a little bit if that news breaks before the San Antonio game starts, which that game is an hour after lock. So if it's shortly after the first game, like the first game is not one that we need to heavily target. The Wizards have the lowest team total on the slate. They're playing Philly, which, I mean, Philly's fine, but their primary guys are priced up.
Sohan ruled out. Keldon Johnson ruled out.
All that, last 1 minute that I just spent wasting my breath on what if. Okay, so the Spurs projections will obviously update here, and we're still talking guards, but like, where does Devontae Graham fall on the wish list now? Where does Vassell fall on the wish list now? I mean, up more from where they were at.
See, here's on FanDuel, I do still struggle with it a little bit because these guys are priced up a little bit, right? Like, they aren't that cheap. $6,500 for Vassell, and then for Devontae Graham, $5,600. The thing with Vassell is just like he is coming off injury. I could see this being the type of game where they pull a Brooklyn Nets, right? Where their starting lineup just like doesn't come back in the second half, other than a couple guys. That does worry me a little bit. But we have no news that that's going to happen. I don't think you can bank on that happening. But I do think Branham, Graham become very interesting for tournaments. And I just think Vassell's ownership is going to get kind of crazy high. So I think he becomes the guy in cash. I was talking about leaving out him or Isaiah Joe. It's Isaiah Joe now, or one of the other guys I mentioned. Like, I think you play Vassell now. But from a tournament standpoint, if his ownership gets crazy high, I do think that's something that he's gonna. Sorry, Dean just messaged me and said that Lindy Waters has signed a 2-year contract, so I lost my train of thought. So I guess he's not fighting for a contract, but yeah, I like the Spurs today. I think Vassell becomes a cash game staple, just like you already had him tagged. I was kind of probably in the minority there anyways. And then I think Branham and Graham become very interesting tournament plays on FanDuel, and then even more so on DraftKings.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a different discussion over on DraftKings where some of the guys aren't priced up quite as much. But and I agree. I think Vassell is still the core play. It was kind of banking on Johnson hopefully being out. But if that ownership steams really high now, maybe you pivot to some other options in GPPs and go a little bit underweight on the guys that get mega chalky. But we'll see when projections update kind of where we leave the Spurs. If that happens to get updated before we get off the air, we can pass that along. All right, let's move to the forward spots here. We had Brandon Ingram was a late scratch, ruled out last night after having a questionable tag. They ruled him out early today. So Najee Marshall is getting a ton of ownership at the small forward spot. Keldon Johnson was the second highest owned guy when we came on the air, but now he's going to be out. So just not a lot of options here at the forward positions. They're very weak tonight. So Najee Marshall is the guy that everyone's playing, but where the heck do we go otherwise?
Yeah, well, I have Najee Marshall in 100% of my lineups, but I do think that the other ones at the small forward position I'm most interested in are those other guys at the shooting guard and who has shooting guard and small forward eligibility. So one of the other OKC Thunder, Jalen Williams or Luguentz Dort, I think both of them are in play. Somebody like RJ Barrett, I like him as well. Those would probably be the main three I'd be choosing between. And then like on FanDuel, Malachi Branham has small forward eligibility. So like I think he's actually the main guy that I would want to be pairing Najee Marshall with right now. $5,100 Malachi Branham at small forward. I think that's one of the better values over on FanDuel now. So he's probably my priority at the small forward position. And then at power forward, somebody like Keita Bates-Diop is in play now at $4,300 or $4,800, sorry. From a tournament standpoint, I just kind of want to cover these Spurs first. From a tournament standpoint, I even think Mamushkavelli, I even think he's interesting for tournaments at $3,500 on FanDuel. I think that's a punt that you can take. Damian Lillard is a game time decision on Sunday. Now, I don't know if that's going to be something that if they're just saying, yeah, he's still probable, but like he's going to warm up and check. I don't know if it's one of those or if it's like a downgrade. Yeah, he might not play, but we'll see. Keep an eye on that one for sure. But at the power forward position, those are kind of cheap shots. I don't mind taking Anthony Davis. I think maybe we can get to now. Julius Randle, I don't mind. I don't really love Jared Vanderbilt today. I'm not super fond about that, but I think you can even get up to somebody like a Zach Collins.
Yeah, I think Zach Collins is really interesting now. Interested to see where the ownership goes on him, but with Sohan out as well, I think, getting some exposure to these Spurs. I mean, when they're projected for 117 points, I think Collins is going to be projected for over 30 minutes, unless you think they're just going to completely punt the game. Then Mamukelashvili and, those guys become the guys maybe you want to take shots on in tournaments. But definitely with the forward positions being weak, don't be afraid to go to some of these guys from the Spurs. Let's talk about some other teams, options that we might be looking at the forward spots. Like, I really like Randall tonight. His ownership has gone up a little bit higher, but you look at his usage and all the stats with Brunson off the floor, 37% usage yesterday for Randall, but he was 5 for 24 from the floor, 8 for 22 the game before that. So he just hasn't been making shots. Hopefully he knocks down a few more against the Lakers tonight, but I like Randall a good bit. He's taken, a ton of threes lately as well. So Randall is one of my favorites tonight for tournaments at moderate ownership for a 4-game slate. So Jared Vanderbilt, I think if you're looking to go a little bit cheaper, but a few of the options that you might be looking at, maybe some Trey Murphy. How about some other teams other than the Spurs who you got your eye on up in the front court tonight?
OKC, so like I guess not so much from like the bigs perspective, but like their wing players I really like today, like the Jalen Williamses and Luguentz Dort. But then in terms of like the center position today on FanDuel, I think that's the toughest one of the day to fill. You could go all the way up for somebody like an Embiid or Davis. If I'm prioritizing one, I think it's probably going to be Davis. As worrisome as that sounds, you can go lower to a Valanciunas or a Robinson. But like, as crazy as it sounds, I don't know. I feel like Zach Collins might be my favorite actual like cash center now.
Yeah, I don't mind Collins as a cash game play or a tournament play at center, or you can play him at power forward too. Mitchell Robinson, I like in GPPs, but if you look at, before a projections update here, Embiid was the only player with a positive RG value, and that was barely. I mean, and he's 12K. So, I mean, if you can't quite get up to Embiid at 12K, basically you're looking at a whole lot of guys that don't project super well on a points per dollar basis at any of the forward or the center spots on FanDuel. So interested to see how things shake out with our Spurs updates. Hopefully we'll get those while we're still here on the air. One question that somebody brought up in the Discord that I wanted to go through, and then we'll pivot over to DraftKings, is does it make this is what I was getting at when I was talking about, if the Spurs news breaks late, and then of course it broke now, but could you fade the first game entirely? I mean, I don't think there's anybody from Washington you need to have. Nobody from Philadelphia is projecting super chalky. The first game tends to be a little bit over-owned in tournaments. You get the people that want their early screenshots and stacking it up, but even though it's only a 4-game slate, like, can you fade the first game? I think is an interesting question tonight.
I do think you can, yes. I'm not like, that's definitely the game I'm getting to the least. I'm getting to like maximum 15% of a couple guys like Bradley Beal, and then in the first game, and then Joel Embiid, I'm trying to get about 20% of, but nobody I'm going to have more than 20% of, and I'm probably not going to have more than 2 players from either of those teams in a game.
Yeah, I don't mind fading it. Gives you more time for the other news, but now that the Spurs news is already broken, I think it's it's a little less important to do it just for game theory reasons, but certainly understand the logic behind it. All right. Any other thoughts on FanDuel before we pivot over to DraftKings?
Nope, I think that's about it.
All right. We do have one question on a FanDuel GPP in the Discord from JM Sword. FanDuel tournament, Jalen Williams and Bates Diop, or Lou Dort and Zach Collins?
Lou Dort and Zach Collins.
I think I agree with that. All right, let's go ahead and pivot over to DraftKings here, and we will talk about that. Again, we've got about 18 minutes left till lock. Those of you that are just joining us, don't forget the time change, early lock on Sundays. Some people are going to get stuck with some dummy lineups today. It is going to happen. Don't be that person. All right, DraftKings, it tends to be a little bit easier to build lineups on, nights where we get value because the pricing has been more aggressive over on FanDuel for the most of this season. There's not a ton of differences tonight, I guess. Quickly at 6,900 on DraftKings, Joe at 4,800 on DraftKings. The prices aren't super different from what we saw on FanDuel. You've got Giddey, Vassell, CJ McCollum, like the guys getting the ownership at the guard spots are somewhat similar to what we saw on FanDuel. What are you looking at the guard spots on DraftKings tonight?
Yeah, a lot of the same things. So McCollum and Giddey are going to be my 2 highest owns. Since we've gotten this Spurs news, Malachi Branham and Devontae Graham have really skyrocketed up the list. They're quite a bit cheaper on DraftKings, and so I'm getting about 30% of each of these guys. But I do think I might want to bump the Devontae Graham, lower the Malachi Branham a little bit. I just kind of wanted to have more. I want to get a lot of late spots in here because I do have, just in case, that Damian Lillard game time decision thing with Brandon Ingram already out. It just gave me a little bit of the ick. Like, I know he's still probable, but it did give me a little bit of pause. And so just because of that, now I will change this if Damian Lillard becomes in, but I got 30% Anthony Simons right now for kind of a just in case type of thing. And I'll probably try and get even more of than that if Lillard's out, but as a placeholder, that's kind of what I have in right now. Vassell is still a strong play, and I am getting to about 30% of him. But as it stands right now, I'm actually getting to more Branham and Devontae Graham than I am Vassell.
Yeah, I think that's fine for tournaments. And, it's not necessarily a downgrade, I guess, because if he's still listed as probable, with the fact that they're saying he's a game time decision makes it feel like a downgrade with Lillard. So it's just those late day updates that say, game time decision when they've been listed as probable all day. Those are always worrisome. And it kind of feels like, the situation that we saw with Kyrie Irving last night. It just gives you a weird feeling that, maybe they're not going to throw him out there tonight. And I know nothing's a given and it's a road game and they're only a handful of, favored by a handful of points. So you can't just assume it's a W, even with Ingram out on the other side. But just a weird feel. I kind of share your thoughts on that. And again, that game's an hour after lock. So if you're fading the first game, you got plenty of time to make those changes and those updates. But if you are planning on playing Lillard or Simons or other Portland guys, definitely keep an eye on Lillard's status as we head up to the start of that game. The one guy that is a bit cheaper on DK compared to FanDuel is Graham. He's only 4,700. You mentioned him kind of going up the wish list a little bit, so I would agree with that. Grimes, I think, as a punt, a little less necessary on DK, but certainly somebody you could look at with the Knicks kind of having shorter rotations. All right, let's talk front court spots on DraftKings. Again, largely going to be the same guys. You've got the Spurs ruled out now. You've got Najee Marshall as the chalk. What are you looking at small forward and power forward on DK tonight?
So I do think that's very good chalk. I have Najee Marshall in 100% of my lineups. We seem to be on the same page with a guy like Julius Randle. He's going to be in 40% for me today. He's my second highest owned forward. This is probably going to be one of those slates where the majority of my utilities are going to be guards, but Randall, just like looking at my exposure right now, it's pretty crazy the amount of players that are guards. But Najee Marshall's in 100% of my lineups, Randall's in 40, and then from there, Jalen Williams on OKC, Josh Hart on the Knicks, RJ Barrett on the Knicks, like these, and Luguentz Dort, like these are some guys that have been my priorities all day, and that really hasn't changed with this Spur news. Somebody like a Keita Bates Diop isn't going to rise the ranks here for me.
All right. I keep refreshing to see if we get updates on the Spurs projections. I don't see them yet, so we'll keep checking on that. I'm really curious to see where they end up landing. We've got about 12 minutes left until lock. You want to start throwing your questions in. Again, if you're a premium subscriber, check us out in the RotoGrinders Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. We are in the NBA Crunch Time channel, and we prioritize the questions that are thrown in there. Of course, if we run out of questions in there, we can take some from the YouTube chat as well. I know it's only a 4-game slate and an earlier start with the time change. Probably again, not as many people maybe on the grid here tonight checking it out and getting lineups ready. But again, that could mean maybe a little bit more dead weight in those GPP lineups, a little bit more empty lineups that people don't get set on time. So just make sure you are keeping an eye on that as we get to about 10 minutes here until lock. And again, we will prioritize those questions in the RotoGrinders Discord. If you're sweating the end of the golf tournament this week for DFS, Scotty Scheffler pretty much running away with the Players' Championship. He's got a 5-stroke lead with 3 holes to play, so it seems like Scotty Scheffler is going to be your champ. Been a fantastic week for him. If you are into the DFS golf, hopefully you had some Scheffler this week. And no updates as far as news beyond, if you are just joining us, what has broken during the show. Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan both ruled out for the Spurs tonight. We're still waiting on projections updates there. And then Damian Lillard is still a game time decision for Portland, though technically listed on the injury report as probable. So those are the things we have kept an eye on here throughout the show. Steve Oj in the chat says it's Jeremy Grant's birthday. So if you're into the birthday narrative, you can play some Jeremy Grant tonight.
I have some breaking news as well.
Go for it.
There's about 200 people in the chat that have not pressed the thumbs up button. And I will find you and I will do something. I don't know what, but press the like button if you're in the chat.
Please give us that thumbs up. It's TJ's department to, explain the reasoning for those thumbs ups. And basically the reasoning is that if we don't get the thumbs ups, we can't keep
Cards will get fired.
Yeah, and then TJ.
You know how long Cards has been here? He will get fired. Like he's been here maybe just as long as I have been on this earth, and so you don't want to let Cards get fired. I don't want to get fired. Make sure you hit the like button. We appreciate you. We got to keep the show free, and that's how we do it.
Got to get my cane to go back upstairs after the show ends. All right, let's talk center on DraftKings, and then we will go into the questions. Anybody different on DraftKings? Obviously, Zach Collins is center only. Anthony Davis may be projecting to get a little bit more steam on DK at 10-7 at center. You still got the others, Embiid, Vanderbilt, Mitchell Robinson, but nobody projecting mega well at center. So any other thoughts at the big man spot tonight?
It is kind of weirdly a weak position today outside of some studs. And so my highest owned center on DraftKings is going to be Anthony Davis at about 30%. Zach Collins and Embiid coming in next at the 20% range. But full disclosure, Collins is the center in my single entry lineup as it stands right now. From there, it's just like a bunch of guys that I'm trying to get around 10% of because I don't feel confident in them, but I do think they have high ceilings. Jonas Valanciunas, Yusuf Nurkic, guys at the center position that they might only play 18 minutes today. And so because of that, I mean, like, how much exposure do I want to get to a guy that might only play 18 minutes? But I do value their ceiling, so I am trying to get them in my lineups. Last kind of small sprinkles like are Charles Bassey, even Mamu Kelishvili, like the Jalen Williams and Drew Eubanks is just because they're so cheap. And then like these Wizards players like a Porzingis, but then this will also be the case when we get to others at other positions. Like I'm not really getting to anyone over like 5% on the Wizards.
All right. Chief says that if we don't get enough people to hit the like button, we've got to eat some salad with no dressing as punishment. So apparently we'll just turn into a rabbit if we don't get enough people to hit the like button. Also, producer Devin has dropped a link in the YouTube chat to get $10 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium. If you're interested, you can check that out. All right, let's get to
you're going to say like $10 off a salad at this location.
Nope. No $10 off the salad. Maybe we'll have to beg for that, but no dressing per Will. So, all right, let's see. So Beaner is wondering if he should play Robinson or Embiid for a FanDuel GPP. So do you like Robinson, save some money at center and upgrade elsewhere, or you like getting to Embiid on FanDuel?
I don't hate the idea of going to Mitch Rob today. I do have a little bit more Embiid for what it's worth. But it's so tough. It really is.
Yeah, I like Mitch Rob in tournaments again. I just think the Knicks are going to go a little bit heavier tonight, having lost 3 in a row. We know they play short rotations. And so, it's easy to get some New York exposure on a short slate when guys are going to get some playing time. All right. Devin says Newman's Own is going to be the new sponsor of the show, the co-sponsor with, of course, FanDuel, and sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Richie Smalls is asking in the YouTube chat if Dougie McBuckets is a sneaky play at all. TJ had the Chris Dunn call a few weeks back. Any Dougie McBuckets or other peel back the onion sneaky plays tonight?
The Spurs are a much easier team to play in an MME setting than they are in a single entry setting because we really don't know which one is going to get extended run, which one is going to be getting the minutes. But in large field stuff, I will be getting to some McBuckets. Just because he's so cheap. If he gets hot like he did last game and he plays 28 minutes, he's going to be a fantastic value play. He might also play 18 minutes and not do much, but I'm still trying to get about 10% of Mr. McBuckets in my lineups.
All right. Let's see. Flying Armbar says, does Larry Nance being back, does that hurt any Pelicans? I think maybe Jackson Hayes gets a little bit of a bump down. We still don't know about, playing time for Nance. And I also don't know, if it's been absolutely confirmed.
He's a game time decision at this point.
I was going to say, I thought I saw that he was questionable. So anyway, it would hurt Hayes if he does play, but we don't know that for sure. Billy says getting an uncomfortable amount of D'Angelo Russell on DK to run back the Knicks. I actually think that's a really good strategy tonight. Russell is coming off a good game. We know that, he's not going to be shy in that offense with no LeBron. I think Russell is a really strong tournament play tonight, so I kind of like that call. All right. So again, more people asking if you can fade Embiid, go with Harden instead, and play Mitchell Robinson at center. We just had a similar question to that. Certainly think that's fine. FanDuel GPP question for you, TJ. It's a 3v3. So Embiid, Collins, and Dort, or Porzingis, Randall, and Branham.
First one, Embiid, Collins, and Dort by a pretty wide margin.
All right, I'm going to refresh our projections here on my end, see if we've got those Spurs updates yet. Let's see. So we do have the Spurs updates. So Graham projecting very well on DK. We've got Graham at 44% ownership, Vassal at 36, and Bates Diop at 26. So the Vassal number is largely unchanged from what we had earlier. Let me flip back to FanDuel. Let's see what the Spurs ownership comes out to on FanDuel here. 3 minutes or so until lock. Just think that it's important to get this across. So yeah, not quite as much buzz on FanDuel in terms of how well they project. But Graham's ownership has bumped up from like around 10 to about 40. Bates Diop, same thing. And Zach Collins has gone from about 8 to about 25%. Branham to about 23%. So definitely more interest overall in the Spurs. Again, that game has about a 236 total. Two teams that really aren't mega interested in playing defense. All right.
I have 15% Romeo Langford.
Yeah, I mean, Steve-O had followed up in the YouTube chat. Any concern about Graham or Langford minutes in case they get kind of the surprise DNP CD? But I don't know. We just can't bank on it.
We have no idea. We have no idea. We know the people who are going to start are going to play in the first half. That's all we know about the Spurs today.
All right, good question here in the Discord from NBA DFS. If Dame sits, would you play Simons or Vassal in cash on FanDuel?
I'd prioritize Simons.
I would as well. Again, that requires confirmation that Dame sits, but those games start at the same time. Achilles, DK cash question, Dort and Quickly or Branham and Giddey?
Was that cash or GPP?
Cash. Dort and Quickly or Branham and Giddey?
I would go Dort and Quickly.
All right, another DK cash. Adams, or excuse me, not Adams. Anthony Davis. A. Davis looks like Adams for a second. Anthony Davis and Herb Jones or Embiid and Grimes?
Davis and Jones, but I don't really like Jones.
Yeah, especially if Nance comes back. If Nance comes back, I don't think you play Herb Jones either.
I would maybe go instead of Herb, like Josh Hart, if you can.
All right, so let's see. We're caught up on questions in the Discord. We've got about 1 minute left until lock. DK GPP question from Roger in the YouTube. Melton or Joe?
Joe. Definitely Joe.
Somebody quizzing you on where did Romeo Langford go to college. I'm not sure if this is an inside joke or not.
No idea.
But it's called his YouTube name is Hoosiers Hang Banners, so there's your clue.
Oh, Indiana guy.
Yeah, he's an Indiana guy. All right, let's see. No more questions in the Discord. No, we got a couple people typing. Get those questions in quick. About 30 seconds or so until lock. Hart or Vanderbilt?
Hart.
Agreed. Though I think both are okay if you're in kind of that price range. Okay, good. You answered that last question in the YouTube chat. Again, I think D'Angelo Russell is a really, really interesting play tonight. Don't know if he'd land in a cash game lineup for me, but tournaments or not. Tournaments, he is fine. Achilles says lock Simi Cobbs or not. Simi Cobbs was one of my favorite DFS college football guys at Indiana for a while. He was like their second wide receiver that was always cheap. And seemed to have a knack for playing him at the right time. Wonder what Simi Cobbs is doing these days. Somebody from Indiana is going to have to let us know. But he was a good college football guy in the 5 decades that I've been working here. He was he was a good one. And it is time for the college hoops bracket reveal. So that will be starting, I believe, at the top of the hour as well.
What a big night for television.
Yeah, the World Baseball Classic going on. So USA against Mexico. That's a big game. I think that starts at 10 Eastern. So that'll be tough for the old guy like me to stay awake to watch
I didn't even consider that because we got the bracket reveal. It's the Oscars tonight. It's the season finale of The Last of Us. It's a big night.
Yeah, see, The Last of Us, I never got it. I didn't get into that, but I know it's always popping off on the Sunday nights on the Twitter machine. So just lots of stuff, lots of things going on. And again, throwing baseball into the mix now is going to make it an even busier time. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here tonight. Appreciate y'all checking us out. Made it through the 40-minute show on a 4-game slate. So even though Boston tried to take TJ's internet away for a minute, glad that he was able to get that fixed and hop back. Would have been a tough 40 minutes solo.
The zombies might be taking away your internet here for not getting into The Last of Us.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I'm not gonna. So it depends. Some nights we stick around after the show to say bye, and I can say bye to producer Rob producing for us tonight. I'm not gonna do that tonight because I don't want him to chastise me for not watching The Last of Us. I'll binge watch it at some point, but I'm gonna duck out so that he doesn't get that opportunity to chastise me for it. Sorry, Rob. All right. With that though, we do appreciate Rob's help throughout the show. Thanks to Devin for hanging out. Producer Devin hanging out on his day off in the chat with us.
We got Devin's hanging out. Dean's hanging out. Will's hanging out. We got a good crew.
Everybody's hanging out on Sunday. But with that, we'll let y'all go. Good luck with your lineups tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, most likely talking golf already for next week. Noto and I. So catch you back here for that. We'll have our usual Monday night content as well on the NBA slate tomorrow. And enjoy whatever you may choose to watch on the TV tonight. So have a great night, everybody. For TJ, I'm Justin. Thanks to our producer, Rob, as well. Have a great Sunday evening. We'll see y'all later.